Hi, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be creating some quick composition studies using acrylic ink on handmade cotton rag paper. So I'll get straight into it. I've started by wetting areas of the paper with some clean water on my brush and then scratched into it a bit with a palette knife. I've created my own mix of ink, which is a warm brownish grey, as I wanted these studies to be a bit softer than a monochrome black ink study. I've mixed together black, burnt sienna and a tiny drop of yellow to create this ink. Now I drop the ink into the wet areas and let it do its magic. I love the unpredictability of the ink and the effects that they create, pooling and flowing across the paper. This paper is a handmade KHADI paper, and it has so much texture that the inks are really settling into. I'll link the paper in the description box below. The ink takes a long time to dry, so you can make marks with it and move it across the paper for quite some time. I really enjoy dragging my palette knife through the ink to create very fine lines in the grassy area in the foreground. It's funny because initially I wanted to do this as a first layer with the inks, to then build up over with acrylic paint after. But I ended up just liking the simplicity of the ink studies on their own. I decided not to cover over any of it and tried to press and print the marks into my sketchbook to then work over. However, as you can see, because the paper is so textured, the print didn't work as expected, and I just created a splotchy transfer, but I do work over this later in the video. I then go on to create two more studies using the same technique of wetting the paper in areas and then dropping on the ink. This is such a quick and loose way to create some interesting and unpredictable compositions. I've really enjoyed the process and have actually decided to carry on using and experimenting with acrylic ink for the 100-day project. I'm sure all of you know about the challenge, but it started on the 18th of February and so far I've been managing to create something every day. And that's the thing about acrylic inks, they're so accessible and easy to use in a quick session. Hopefully I'll do an update video on the 100-day project when I'm a bit further in.
Just where it was needed, gleaming black as night, cloistered in injustice, dead in the eye of time. Nobody is losing, faces merge and change, but your face remains the same. Swallows will be here by dawn. When we're finally sober, they'll be gone. The trees will bloom and ice will melt. We'll always remember how it felt.
I go on to work over the imprint that I had in my sketchbook. The sketchbook paper is totally different to the handmade KHADI papers. It's really smooth and doesn't take as much water. So I found applying the ink quite difficult, and I didn't get the same effects as before. This is a Royal Talens art creation sketchbook, and I'm a bit cautious about putting too much ink on the paper, because sometimes it does tend to bleed through. I then work over the ink with gouache and try to scratch through and scrape back the paint to reveal the initial ink layers. I think this will work better on a final piece where I use better quality paper or a wooden panel with acrylic paint. Acrylic paints are usually much easier to layer than gouache, unless you use acrylic gouache, which unfortunately I don't have. I do always find it quite tricky with acrylic inks, as I never want to lose those initial watery marks if I use them in a base layer. But hopefully, with the 100-day project ahead of me, I'll be able to practice this. I especially want to try layering them on top of acrylic paint. In this quick sketchbook piece, I did go back and layer the ink over the gouache, but this just reactivated the gouache and it all became a bit messy. I'm really happy I did this exercise, as I learnt a lot about acrylic inks, and I'm looking forward to experimenting further. If any of you are doing the 100-day project, I'd really love to know what you're up to and how you get on. 100 days does sound like a long time. Please leave a comment below this video. Thank you so much for watching.